Isn't it intriguing how, sometimes, we talk to ourselves in a way we would never use with others, nor would we tolerate from someone else? Meet Nathaniel Scott, a sharp and dedicated young man, always ready to assist his friends and offer words of encouragement. However, when it comes to himself, his words are harsh and unforgiving. Nathaniel used to tell himself things like, "You'll never make it," or "How can you be so stupid?" These words echoed in his mind, poisoning his self-esteem and affecting his confidence. He felt like an imposter in his own life, always on the brink of failure, always waiting for someone to discover that he wasn't as good as he seemed. The constant self-criticism became a soundtrack to his life. Every time he made a small mistake, the inner voice would increase in volume, repeating his failures and feeding his insecurity. Even when he succeeded, the voice would find ways to downplay his achievements. "You just got lucky," or "anyone could have done that," were common phrases in his mind. One day, after a particularly difficult meeting at work, Nathaniel found himself sitting alone in his room, reflecting on his experiences. He began to notice a pattern. While he was compassionate and understanding with others, he did not offer himself the same grace. And this made him feel even more isolated and distressed. Nathaniel decided that he needed to change, but he didn't know where to start. He wondered if other people also struggled with such severe self-censorship and whether it was possible to learn to be kinder to oneself. What he didn't know was that this realization would be the first step on a transformative journey to rediscover self-esteem and self-compassion. And so, Nathaniel was about to embark on a journey of self-discovery, where he would learn to pay attention to the way he communicated with himself and, more importantly, to change that internal narrative to something more constructive and encouraging. Nathaniel decided to seek help to better understand his constant self-criticism. He scheduled a session with a renowned therapist in the city, known for helping many people overcome emotional challenges. During the first consultation, Nathaniel felt nervous and vulnerable, but determined to change. The therapist, Dr. Hannah Williams, was a calm and welcoming woman. She listened attentively as Nathaniel described his internal struggles, without interruptions or judgments. After hearing him out, Dr. Williams asked a simple but profound question. "Nathaniel, would you talk to a friend the same way you talk to yourself?" This question resonated deeply with Nathaniel. He had never thought about it from that perspective before. Nathaniel reflected on how he had always been a shoulder to cry on, offering support and words of encouragement to those around him. He realized that he would never tell a friend that they were stupid or that they would never achieve their goals. So why did he treat himself that way? Dr. Williams introduced Nathaniel to a simple but transformative exercise. Every time he caught himself thinking negatively about himself, he should imagine he was talking to his 6-year-old self. "Would you speak to that little child in the same way?" the therapist asked. Nathaniel smiled, realizing the logic behind the suggestion. It was impossible to be so cruel to an innocent child, especially to a younger version of himself. Nathaniel began practicing that exercise daily. First, it was challenging. The critical voice was loud and persistent, but he persevered. Gradually, he began to notice small changes. When he made a mistake, instead of punishing himself, he tried to remember that everyone makes mistakes and that it's part of the learning process. He started treating himself with the same kindness and patience he offered to others. The sessions with Dr. Hannah Williams continued, and Nathaniel learned more about the origins of his self-criticism. He realized that many of his negative thoughts came from unrealistic expectations he had internalized over the years. He understood that he didn't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and respect. And so, step by step, Nathaniel began to rebuild his self-image. He was starting to see that paying attention to how he talked to himself was one of the keys to a more balanced and happy life. As days turned into weeks, Nathaniel noticed that the practice of speaking to himself more kindly was beginning to have a significant impact on his daily routine. He felt less anxious and more confident. However, there were still moments when the old critical voice resurfaced, especially in high-pressure situations at work. One morning, Nathaniel was called into an important meeting with his team to discuss a crucial project. The tension was palpable, and he knew that the responsibility for success rested heavily on his shoulders. As he prepared, that critical voice began to whisper, "What if you fail? What if you make a mistake? Nathaniel closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He remembered the sessions with Dr. Williams and the image of his 6-year-old self. He decided to treat himself with the same kindness he would offer to a nervous friend. You've prepared for this, he thought. You can do it, and you're doing your best. He walked into the meeting room with a new sense of calm. As he began to present his ideas, the confidence he felt was palpable. He spoke clearly and convincingly, and even when tough questions arose, he maintained his composure. At the end of the meeting, his boss praised his presentation, and his colleagues seemed impressed. Nathaniel left the meeting feeling accomplished, but more importantly, he was proud of how he handled his emotions. He knew he still had a long way to go, but that moment was a milestone. He realized that the way he spoke to himself could directly influence his performance and well-being. In the days that followed, Nathaniel continued to reinforce this new approach. Every time the critical voice emerged, he confronted it with kindness and logic. He began to notice that these voices became weaker and less frequent. He allowed himself to celebrate small victories and accept mistakes as learning opportunities rather than reasons for self-punishment. Nathaniel also began to share his discoveries with friends and colleagues. He opened up about his struggles and the transformation he was experiencing, inspiring others to reflect on their own internal conversations. What started as a personal journey began to expand, creating a circle of support and understanding around him. Nathaniel's internal evolution was manifesting in his professional and personal journey. He started taking on even more complex assignments at work, always remembering to be kind to himself. Amelia, who was in the audience, looked at Nathaniel with pride and affection. She knew how hard he had worked to get to that point and the positive impact he was having on so many people's lives. As the two walked together away from the crowded conference, Amelia turned to Nathaniel and said, "Congratulations on the inspiring speech. Your message of empathy and hope surely touched many hearts today." Nathaniel smiled warmly at Amelia, still feeling deeply grateful to have her by his side on this journey. "Thank you for the constant support over the years. Your faith in me gave me the strength to keep fighting for a more just world." Along the way, Nathaniel's self-esteem was rising, which caught the attention of his colleagues and superiors. On one occasion, his superior requested a private meeting. That night, reflecting on his day, Nathaniel felt more fulfilled than ever. He knew that his personal journey of self-discovery was only beginning, and that he still had much more to learn and share. But above all, he was grateful to have found the strength within himself to speak with gentleness and love. Nathaniel was determined to continue his mission of spreading this message, helping others to find their own compassionate voices and live fuller, more balanced lives. A final thought on self-compassion. We live in a world where we often criticize ourselves harshly, demand perfection, and punish ourselves for the smallest mistakes. But if there's one thing I've learned on my journey, it's that the way we treat ourselves can transform our lives. For many years, I was trapped in a cycle of self-criticism and anxiety. Every failure felt like a disaster, and every mistake was proof of my inadequacy. It was only when I began to treat myself with the same kindness that I offered others that I started to find true peace and balance. Self-compassion is not a weakness. It is a powerful strength. It's the ability to embrace ourselves in moments of pain, to be gentle with ourselves in times of error, and to recognize that we are human, imperfect, yet always worthy of love and respect. So, I leave you, dear readers, with a plea: pay attention to the way you talk to yourselves. When you find yourselves judging or punishing yourselves, stop and ask, would I say this to a friend? If the answer is no, reconsider your words. Offer yourselves the same kindness and understanding that you would offer someone you love. Start with small steps. Maybe it's a positive affirmation when you wake up, or a moment to take a deep breath when anxiety arises. Remember that every act of self-compassion is a brick in the foundation of a happier and more balanced life. And if you need a visual reminder, imagine yourself as a 6-year-old child. Speak to yourself with the same tenderness and patience you would have with that child. Slowly, this practice will become a part of who you are. As I conclude this journey of reflection, I want to thank all of you for walking with me. Your stories, challenges, and victories are a constant inspiration. Together, we can create a world where self-compassion is the norm, not the exception. Remember, you are worthy of love just as you are. And as you treat yourselves gently, you will discover an inner strength capable of transforming not only your lives but the world around you. With gratitude, Nathaniel. When Nathaniel clicked the publish button, he was overwhelmed by a profound sense of accomplishment. He knew that by sharing his story, he was planting the seeds of change and encouraging others to embrace their own journeys of self-acceptance. In that moment, he allowed himself to feel proud not only of what he had achieved but also of the positive impact his narrative would have on the world. His perspective, once singular, would now serve as an inspiration for those still searching for their purpose, reinforcing the belief that everyone has the power to transform lives through the compassion they first cultivate for themselves.